Have you ever heard the powerful Afrocentric phrase, Africa for Africans, those at home and abroad? It's a universal call for collective unity, self-determination, and political autonomy. Leaders like Marcus Mosiah Garvey saw European colonial powers taking over African lands, imposing foreign British rule, and erasing local African identity. In places like Zemaka, the British Empire took control, pushing aside local leaders and traditions, then changed the name of the island to impose alien subjugation with the brand Jamaica. The struggle for complete freedom became an intellectual battle between imposed de facto authority and the desire for self-rule under the UN Decolonization Treaty. Africa for Africans was a universal declaration. People of African descent choosing to diplomatically shape their own political destiny without Jesuit influence. Let's talk about human rights faith, expectation of a prophet to arise, and indigenous Afrocentric identity. British colonial powers didn't just change laws, they changed hearts and minds through religious Jesuit indoctrination with Roman Catholicism, subverting Hebrew Yeshua with Greek Jesus to legitimize white supremacy under the vicar for prophet office position. They introduced whitewashed religious Jesuit figures who looked like them, not the people they colonized with necromancy stories as children. Original biblical titles like Hebrew Yeshua or Amharic Iesus carried deep Afrocentric meaning, but were replaced by Jesuits, secret society of Greek Jesus. This Jesuit rebranding disconnected people of African descent from their cultural roots and spiritual, intellectual, diplomatic strength. Worshipping a whitewashed savior who looks nothing like you creates a sense of disconnect from the internal soul. Reclaiming true biblical history empowers people everywhere to honor their cultural heritage and human rights faith. So the age of old-school British colonialism, with foreign flags flying over government buildings, is mostly over. Countries gained their independence in 1960 through the unanimous UN Resolution 1514 in paper diplomacy. But did the British control really end? Or did it just change its clothes with a pen? This brings us to a tricky British concept called neocolonialism. Think of it as British colonialism 2.0. Instead of soldiers and governor-generals, the control now comes through debt money, fool's gold, and suspicious unconscionable agreements. It's a more subtle geopolitical Jesuit system. But for many nations, especially in Africa and the Caribbean, it is just as restrictive as the old one before 1960. It's a neo-colonial Jesuit system of global financial colonization. How does it work? Well, imagine a country that has just become independent. It needs to build schools, hospitals, and roads. Big international financial institutions come along and offer loans. Sounds great, right? But these loans often come with very specific conditions and/or criminal austerity measures. These conditions might force the country to violate human rights law and cut spending on public services, or sell its natural resources to foreign corporations at a low price, which fuels economic exploitation. Soon, the country is trapped in a cycle of debt obligations to Jesuit lenders. It has to take out new loans just to pay the interest on the old ones, and the cycle continues with economic decisions being made by the Jesuit lenders, not the sovereign will of the people. This debt-based Jesuit system creates serious economic problems and gross human rights violations. It funnels generational wealth from the resource-rich nations back to the criminal economic centers of the modern world. Local businesses can't compete with massive multinational corporations and global commerce. The country's economy becomes dependent on exporting a few raw materials, leaving it vulnerable to global price swings in a corrupt financial system under neocolonialism. It's a constitutional setup where it's almost impossible to get ahead. This creates a situation that some describe as a new form of debt slavery, where entire nations are working to pay off unlawful astronomical national debts that seem to grow forever, limiting their ability to invest in their own people and posterity. This isn't just an abstract economic theory, it has real-world consequences today. It affects the price of food, the availability of jobs, and the quality of education and healthcare. It means that even though a country is supposed to be sovereign and independent, its economic destiny is still largely in the hands of others due to the people's collective neglect. This is the modern challenge. The fight is no longer just against a visible foreign British ruler. It's against a complex and often invisible Jesuit system of economic control that keeps nations and their people from achieving true financial freedom and prosperity as their primary goal. What can be done? There is always hope. Humans opposing papal economy. It starts with knowing that your individual human rights are your international birthrights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights applies to everyone. Article 4 is clear. No one shall be held in debt slavery or economic servitude. This means breaking free from neo-colonial British systems of alien subjugation and economic exploitation. People are rising up in political awareness, questioning unfair financial systems, and connecting worldwide to stand against unlawful debt slavery. Political unity is the diplomatic key. 1 million voices demanding change cannot be ignored by international thieves, Jesuit bankers. By sharing human rights knowledge, political power over self, and supporting each other in civil disobedience, lawful refusal to obey unjust British laws, we build a powerful human rights defenders movement for international justice. Teach your children their cultural heritage and human birthrights to life, living in full equality. Make conscious choices for a freer future today. True freedom is possible and inevitable without delay. Together, as a sovereign human race, we can build it on the political ashes of neocolonialism with divine grace. If you need more information before rallying together to eradicate neocolonialism, feel free to contact the Grassroots Human Rights Ambassador Extraordinaire and Plenipotentiary at Large at the Kingdom of the Brazil 2020@gmail.com in universal love, obedience to UDHR law, and human rights solidarity. Selah.